The night was quiet, and the city streets glowed faintly under the dim streetlights as Michael stepped onto the nearly empty bus. His little daughter rested peacefully against his shoulder, her small arms looped loosely around his neck, her breath soft and steady. The bus smelled faintly of old leather and diesel, its overhead lights flickering in tired intervals. Michael moved carefully, not wanting to wake his child, and took a seat near the middle. Across the aisle sat a young woman. She kept her head lowered, but her restless movements betrayed her unease. Every few seconds, her eyes darted toward the back of the bus. Two men sat there, whispering and laughing in a way that wasn't cheerful. It was sharp, mocking, filled with an edge that made the air feel heavier. Their eyes followed her in a way that wasn't subtle, and though she tried to pretend she didn't notice, her tightening grip on her bag told the truth. Michael adjusted his daughter gently, his eyes following the young woman's nervous gestures. She shifted in her seat, sat a little straighter, then sank lower, as if trying to disappear. Her shoulders stiffened whenever the men muttered something under their breath, and once, she pressed her bag tightly against her chest as if it were her shield. The bus rattled down the lonely road, but inside, tension grew. Michael's fatherly instincts stirred. Something was wrong here, and though he didn't yet know what, he could sense the silent plea hidden in the young woman's eyes. Michael tried to settle into the rhythm of the bus, but his eyes kept drifting toward the young woman across the aisle. There was something in her body language he couldn't ignore. She wasn't just nervous, she was signaling. At first, he thought it was coincidence, the way she shifted closer to the aisle, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear twice in quick succession. But then he saw her glance at him, hold it for a second too long, and lower her gaze again with urgency. It clicked. She wasn't just fidgeting, she was asking for help without saying a word. Michael's heart tightened. He glanced back casually, and his suspicion was confirmed. The two men were still watching her, their whispers growing bolder, their laughter colder. One of them leaned forward, his eyes glinting with the kind of intent that made Michael's chest burn with protectiveness. The young woman shifted again, this time resting her bag on her lap like a barrier, her hand gripping the strap so tightly her knuckles turned pale. She brushed her hair back once more, deliberately, and flicked her eyes toward him. It was subtle, but it was enough. Michael straightened in his seat, his little girl still sleeping soundly against him. His pulse quickened, but his mind was calm. He knew that look, the quiet plea of someone trapped and afraid. He had seen it before in others, and he couldn't ignore it now. She was signaling for safety, and Michael realized he was the only one who had noticed. Michael carefully shifted his daughter from his shoulder, laying her gently on the seat beside him and tucking his jacket around her. She stirred but didn't wake, her small hand still clutching the fabric as if it were a blanket. Taking a deep breath, Michael rose to his feet, his tall frame steady and unshaken. He didn't rush, every step toward the young woman was calm, deliberate, and protective. As he reached her row, he gave her a reassuring smile and slid into the seat beside her as though it was the most natural thing in the world. "Hey," he said warmly, his voice carrying a tone of familiarity. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was awful." For a second, the young woman froze, startled, then her eyes softened with sudden relief. She understood what he was doing, pretending to know her so she wouldn't feel alone. She gave a small nod, playing along, whispering, "It's okay. I'm just glad you're here." Michael leaned back casually, resting his arm on the seat behind her, not touching, but making it clear she was no longer unprotected. His gaze flicked toward the back of the bus, locking eyes with the two men. Their smirks faltered, their whispered words cut short. They slouched back in their seats, muttering to each other, but their false bravado had cracked. Michael didn't need to raise his voice or make a scene. His calm presence, his protective stance, and the quiet confidence in his eyes were enough. He had made his point, she was not alone anymore. The bus slowed with a hiss of brakes, pulling up to the next stop along the nearly empty street. The glow of a street lamp spilled through the windows, breaking the heavy tension that had hung in the air. Michael leaned closer to the young woman and whispered gently, "This is us." She nodded quickly, her relief so evident it almost brought tears to her eyes. Rising first, Michael lifted his sleeping daughter into his arms, cradling her against his chest. With his free hand, he gestured for the woman to follow. She clutched her bag tightly and walked with him down the aisle. The two men at the back didn't move, only stared as the trio passed. Their smirks were gone, replaced by a silent frustration at having been challenged without a single word of confrontation. Stepping off the bus, the cool night air wrapped around them. The doors shut, and the bus rumbled away, leaving them standing beneath the soft orange glow of the street lamp. For the first time that night, the woman's shoulders eased, her chest rising and falling as if she'd been holding her breath for hours. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Thank you. I didn't know if anyone would notice. I was so scared." Her eyes glistened, reflecting both fear and gratitude. Michael adjusted his daughter gently, offering a small, steady smile. He didn't say much, he didn't need to. The way he stood beside her in that quiet street made it clear, she wasn't invisible, and she wasn't alone. The night was quiet again, but this time the silence felt safe. The young woman wiped at her eyes, trying to steady her voice. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered, her gratitude trembling on every word. Michael shifted his daughter in his arms, brushing a strand of hair from her sleeping face. He gave a small smile, the kind that carried both weariness and quiet strength. "I did," he said softly. "Because if it were her one day," he glanced down at his little girl, holding her a little closer, "I'd hope someone would stand up for her too." The woman's lips parted as emotion washed over her. No stranger had ever protected her like that, not with fists or threats, but with simple courage and kindness. She nodded, her fear slowly fading into relief, and for the first time all night, she allowed herself to breathe freely. The bus had long disappeared down the dark road, but in that small circle of light beneath the street lamp, something had shifted. Two strangers had crossed paths, and because one man chose to notice, chose to act, a moment of fear had turned into a memory of safety. As Michael began walking, his daughter's head resting gently on his shoulder, the woman whispered after him, "You're a good father." He paused, smiled faintly, and kept walking, leaving her with a truth that lingered like the night air: sometimes the quietest acts of courage are the ones that change everything.